If you like to use pivot tables to analyze data, you're going to like this next new feature that allows you to filter via a timeline. It's called the timeline filter. We're going to use this file named No Obstacle Sport July 2012 Sales Report, which, as you can see from the very first data sheet here, is a list of sales for each of the days in July. So we have multiple sales on the 1st of July. You can see the SKUs for the items, their prices. And if we scroll all the way down to the bottom of this sheet, we're going to see a grand total revenue for the month of July 2012. This is a perfect opportunity for a pivot table that will help us to analyze that data and make it a little bit easier to understand. Let's go to the Pivot tab, where a pivot table has already been created based on two fields. As you can see, we have the date field and we have the sum of the price field next to it. So instead of individual sales, we see the total sales for the 1st of July, the 2nd, and so on. And as we scroll down, there's our grand total. So that's for each of the days in July where there were sales. Now, if we wanted to analyze that further by date, we can use this new timeline filter. All we need to do now is make sure that we're on cell A2. Click there. That's the beginning of our pivot table. Go to the Insert tab. And next, we'll go to the Filter section where you'll find the new one called Timeline. We'll give that a click. And there's only one date field or table to choose from here. If there were multiple tables, we could select the table we want to base our timeline on. But there's just this one over here. It's called Date. We'll click the checkbox and click OK. All right, so there's our object. We can move it around. We can size it. There is a scroll bar so we can see the contents. And in this case, we're looking at the default, which is the various months of 2012. But we know our table only has sales showing for July. If we go to July, we're not going to see any changes over here in our table because all of these dates fall in that month. However, we can go to the drop-down to choose a different filter. We have years, quarters. We also have months, which is already checked off, but the one we want is days. So when we click days, now we're looking at a different object. As we scroll across, we're looking at each of the individual days in July. And they're all highlighted right now. That's why we're seeing all of the data over there on the left-hand side. Let's just stretch this out so we can see at least most of the days in July as we scroll left to right. And now we can pick an individual day if we wanted to. For example, how do we do on the 1st? Well, we just click the 1, and that's all we're going to see, sales for the 1st, including the grand total. What about the first 10 days? We can click and drag from 1 all the way across to 10 and release. There's our total sales for the first 10 days in July. Wondering about the second half? Well, again, you could click and drag over the dates. Let's go from the 15th all the way to the 30th and release. So it's a great way to quickly review data based on a timeline, in this case, viewing it by days, but we also have the ability to view by months, quarters, and years, a handy little feature. And it is an object that we can move around and size to our liking. It's just a great way to save some time when you're trying to analyze complicated or extensive data.